The endless Mexican desert stretched on, the scorching sun making the ground shimmer with heat. John Wick sat on a worn wooden chair in front of a small cantina in the remote town of San Miguel. His sharp eyes scanned the dusty street, where children ran and played and locals were trading goods. He had lived here for 3 years, hiding from his past as the XXX agent nicknamed the Phantom, who once made his enemies tremble in fear. Now, John was just an ordinary man, helping villagers fix water pipes or haul goods in his old truck. But the past never let him go. A phone vibrated in the pocket of his leather jacket. A short message from an unknown number read, "Check the news. New York." Right now, John frowned, walked into the cantina, and turned on the television. The screen showed a chaotic scene at the security conference center in New York. A tall man, his face as cold as ice, stormed into a crowd of bodyguards. He moved as fast as the wind, his first punch landing squarely on a guard's jaw, knocking him out cold. Another guard raised his gun, but the man spun, delivering a Muay Thai roundhouse kick, his leg drawing a perfect arc in the air, sending the gun flying. With fluid movements combining karate and jiu-jitsu, he seized the weapon and fired repeatedly, each shot accurate to the millimeter. The crowd panicked, and the conference leaders scattered. In less than a minute, all the guards lay on the floor. He stole a small device, known as Pandora's box, then vanished with 3 other figures through the shattered glass door. The news called him Viktor Kuznetsov, an assassin from a secret organization. John clenched his fists, his heart pounding. Pandora's box was no ordinary item. He had heard of it during his time with the CIA, a high-tech device capable of controlling global satellites, turning them into weapons of mass destruction. If it fell into the wrong hands, disaster was inevitable. John knew he couldn't stand by. He stood up to walk out of the cantina, his eyes filled with determination. His peaceful life was over. He retrieved his old motorcycle from a wooden shed and checked his bag: a combat knife, a pistol, and an old communication device. Before leaving, he helped a nearby elderly woman carry a barrel of water, offering a faint smile. The villagers loved John, but none of them knew who he truly was. On the road to Mexico City, John rode through the desert, dust kicking up behind his wheels. He recalled his days as an XXX agent, the dangerous missions, the extreme action sequences. Once, in Russia, he had snowboarded down a mountain cliff to escape mercenaries. Every move, a balance between life and death. Now, the past was calling him back. At a seedy bar in Mexico City, John met Mark Thompson, a former CIA official. Mark, in a rumpled suit, handed John a file. "Victor is working for a secret organization. We need you. John, only you are capable of stopping him." John flipped through the file, seeing Victor's photo, a tall Russian man with eyes as sharp as knives. A former special agent, now an international criminal. Mark explained that Pandora's box could trigger a global war if it wasn't recovered. John agreed, but on one condition: he would choose his own team. Mark nodded, but there was something unusual in his eyes. John didn't trust him completely, but time was running out. He contacted 3 old friends: Sarah Connor, a tech expert; Ethan Hunt, a sniper; and Jason Bourne, a master driver. They were the former XXX team, outcasts who feared nothing. John returned to a warehouse in New York where the team gathered. Sarah, with her hair tied back neatly, had already hacked into security cameras, tracing Victor's trail to the Sonoran Desert in Mexico. Ethan inspected his sniper rifle, his gaze cold. Jason quietly wiped down his car, ready for any pursuit. John assigned their roles, emphasizing, "We're not working for the CIA. We're doing this for the world." Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open, and a group of mercenaries stormed in. John reacted instantly. Lunging at the first man, he attacked with a straight boxing punch, but John dodged. He spun and delivered a capoeira heel kick, his leg drawing a perfect arc to strike his opponent's throat. The second man raised a knife, but John used jiu-jitsu to lock his arm. Twisting the joint and throwing him over a wooden table, the team coordinated flawlessly, taking down the entire group in seconds. John looked at his teammates and nodded. "Get ready. We're going hunting." What region are you listening to this story from? And what time is it where you are? Please leave a comment below to let me know you're doing well and are fully focused on this story. My dear friend, we will continue right after this. The night sky over Mexico City glittered with lights, but inside an old warehouse on the outskirts, the air was as tense as a bowstring. John Wick stood in the middle of the room, his sharp eyes scanning his teammates. Sarah Connor, her laptop open on a table, was typing furiously. The screen displaying a map of the Sonoran Desert, Mexico. Ethan Hunt inspected his sniper rifle, each movement as precise as a machine. Jason Bourne, leaning against an all-terrain vehicle, wiped dust from the windshield, ready for the journey. They were outlaws who had fought together on impossible missions, but now they had to join forces to deal with Viktor Kuznetsov, the man holding Pandora's box, a device that could turn satellites into weapons of mass destruction. John walked over to the planning board, his voice low. "We have 48 hours before Viktor activates the device." Sarah. "Report." Sarah looked up, her hair tied back neatly. "I've hacked into the camera system in Sonora. Viktor is hiding in an underground base in the desert, protected by mercenaries and a state-of-the-art security system." Ethan interjected. "Maximum sniper range is 800 meters. I'll need a high vantage point." Jason smirked. "And I'll get us in there. But the desert roads won't be easy." John nodded. Assigning tasks, Sarah would handle the tech. Ethan would provide cover from a distance. Jason would drive, and he would lead the infiltration. "Don't trust the CIA." John stressed. "We only trust each other." The team got into the vehicle, a sleek black SUV, and sped into the night toward the Mexican border. On the way, John remembered the last time he worked with the team, 5 years ago. In Russia, they had busted an arms trafficking ring, facing dozens of guards in an abandoned factory. John had taken down the leader with a taekwondo roundhouse kick, his legs spinning like a blade through the frigid air. That memory reminded him that this team wasn't just his crew, they were family. By the time they reached the Sonoran Desert, dawn was breaking, the sun turning the sand a brilliant gold. John led the team toward the base, hiding behind large rock formations. Sarah hacked a reconnaissance drone, sending back images an underground fortress with steel doors and cameras everywhere. Suddenly, an alarm blared. "We've been spotted," Sarah yelled. A group of mercenaries rushed out, automatic weapons firing. John reacted instantly, charging the first man. He threw a powerful boxing punch, but John dodged and countered with a flurry of Wing Chun strikes, his fists moving like rain, each blow landing on his opponent's chest, forcing him back. A second man with a knife rushed forward. John spun, using Aikido to grab his wrist and twist it, then delivered a low Silat leg sweep, knocking him flat on his back. John's movements were as beautiful as a martial arts performance, each strike fluid and precise. Like an artist on a fatal stage, Ethan fired from a distance, a single bullet piercing a guard's head, creating an opening for the team to advance. Jason drove the vehicle through the sand, swerving to avoid bullets. Getting the team close to the main entrance, Sarah hacked the electronic lock, and the steel door slid open. Inside, the corridor was dark, with red lights flashing intermittently. John led the way, moving silently. But another group of soldiers appeared. John charged in, facing their leader. He used Russian Sambo, trying to wrestle John to the ground. John countered with Krav Maga, striking at weak points, then delivered a sharp Muay Thai elbow to his opponent's chin, dropping him instantly. His teammates provided support, taking down the rest of the group. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, like a violent dance in the dim light. They found the data storage room. Sarah plugged in a USB drive, downloading information about Pandora's box. The screen showed that Viktor Kuznetsov was in Russia, preparing to sell the device to a secret organization. But suddenly, a small explosion shook the base. "It's a trap," Ethan yelled. John ordered a retreat. They ran out, pursued by all-terrain vehicles. Jason floored it, the car flying across the sand. John leaped onto an enemy vehicle, confronting the driver. He attacked with a high kickboxing kick, but John dodged, applied a judo chokehold, and threw him from the vehicle. John grabbed the wheel, crashing the car into the pursuing group, creating an escape path for his team. Back in their vehicle, John examined the data Sarah had downloaded. "Viktor isn't acting alone," Sarah said. "There's a mole in the CIA." John clenched his fists, his eyes cold. He knew this fight wasn't just about Pandora's box, but also about trust. The team prepared to fly back to New York, ready to confront the traitor and hunt down Viktor in Russia. John looked out the window as the desert faded into the distance. He knew the road ahead would be filled with blood and fire. John Wick burst out of the underground base in the Sonoran Desert, Mexico, drenched in sweat, his hand clutching the USB drive with data on Viktor Kuznetsov. The blare of the alarm still echoed behind him, mixed with the roar of mercenary ATVs in pursuit. Sarah Connor ran beside him, her laptop slung over her shoulder, shouting, "We have 5 minutes before their reinforcements arrive." Ethan Hunt and Jason Bourne covered their retreat, Ethan's rifle roaring as he took down a soldier from a distance. John jumped into the SUV, ordering, "Jason, get us out of here," the engine screamed as the vehicle tore across the sand. But 3 armored enemy cars were hot on their tail. John opened the car door and climbed onto the roof, the desert wind whipping his face. A soldier in a pursuing vehicle took aim. John ducked, dodging the bullet, then launched a spinning capoeira kick, his leg drawing a perfect arc to shatter the enemy's windshield. He leaped onto the enemy vehicle, confronting the driver. The man used kung fu, unleashing a flurry of punches as fast as rain. John countered with Wing Chun, blocking the combination, then delivered a sharp Muay Thai elbow to his opponent's jaw, knocking him out cold. John grabbed the wheel and rammed the vehicle into another, creating chaos. Jason seized the opportunity, swerving through a narrow gap between 2 rock formations, losing the pursuers. The team stopped at a hideout a few kilometers from the base. Sarah opened her laptop and checked the data. "Viktor is planning to move Pandora's box to Russia in the next 24 hours. She said. "His main base is in Siberia, protected by an air defense system." John nodded, his eyes cold. "We need to get in there before he sells the device." Ethan checked a map. "There's an abandoned airfield nearby. I suggest we use a small plane to cross the border." Jason smirked. "I'll handle the transportation." John ordered, "Get ready. We don't have time." They moved to the abandoned airfield, where a rickety old plane was waiting. But as they prepared for takeoff, a team of mercenaries appeared, armed with grenade launchers. John led the counterattack, charging the first man. He used Russian Sambo, trying to wrestle John to the ground. John dodged, countering with Krav Maga, striking his knee joint, then delivered a low Silat leg sweep that sent him sprawling. John's movements were fluid, like a deadly dance, each blow swift and precise. Sarah hacked the airfield's lighting system, causing the lights to flash chaotically. Ethan sniped, taking down 2 men from a distance. Jason started the plane's engine, yelling, "Get on." Now the plane took off, gliding over the desert in the brilliant red sunset. In the cabin, John checked his weapons, a combat knife, a pistol, and a set of lightweight body armor made by Sarah. She explained, "This armor can stop small caliber rounds, but don't take a direct hit." John nodded, his gaze focused. The data from the USB revealed that Viktor Kuznetsov not only wanted to sell Pandora's box, but also planned to blackmail governments by threatening to drop satellites on major cities, including New York. John clenched his fists, remembering the explosion at the conference. He knew Viktor wouldn't stop at just one attack. Suddenly, the plane's radar blared. 2 drones appeared, firing missiles. Jason expertly maneuvered the plane, dodging the projectiles in midair as the engine roared. John opened the cabin door and stood on the wing, the wind hitting him with brutal force. A missile shot toward them. John leaped up, plunged his combat knife into the missile's fuselage, deflecting its course to explode a few meters from the plane. He landed back on the wing and delivered a taekwondo roundhouse kick to the second drone, knocking it off balance and sending it crashing into the desert below. His actions were like an aerial martial arts display, swift and decisive, leaving the entire team in awe. The plane made an emergency landing in a field on the Mexican border. Sarah checked the data one last time and discovered an encrypted message from the CIA sent to Viktor. "There's a mole on our team," she whispered. John looked at the group, his eyes sharp and cold. "No one leaves the team until I find the traitor." Ethan and Jason nodded, but a heavy tension filled the air. They got into another vehicle, heading for an international airport to fly to Russia. John knew the battle in Siberia wouldn't just be about Pandora's box, but also about loyalty. He checked his gun, steeling himself for a bigger hunt, where every step could be the line between life and death. John Wick sat silently in the corner of a small cafe in Manhattan, New York, his eyes fixed on Sarah Connor's laptop. The screen displayed the encrypted email she had just deciphered, sent from Mark Thompson to an anonymous account linked to Viktor Kuznetsov. "He betrayed us," Sarah whispered, her fingers gliding over the keyboard. Ethan Hunt, standing by the window, watched the street through the blinds. Ahun hidden in his jacket, Jason Bourne, leaning against the wall, clenched his fists, his eyes filled with suspicion. After the fight in the Mexican desert, the team had just returned to New York on a difficult flight. Carrying data about Pandora's box and the suspicion of a mole, John knew that if they didn't deal with Mark, their plan to hunt Viktor in Russia would fail. John stood up, his voice low. "I'll meet Mark. Sarah, track his signal. Ethan, Jason, get the car ready." The team nodded, moving like a well-oiled machine. John stepped out onto the New York street, where neon lights flickered and crowds bustled. He tracked Mark using the GPS Sarah had planted on his phone. The meeting point was a secluded corner of Central Park, where Mark was meeting a stranger. John hid behind an old tree. "Eavesdropping," Mark whispered. "Viktor is ready in Siberia. Pandora's box will be moved in 12 hours. The other person nodded, handing over a small briefcase. John gripped his combat knife, the feeling of betrayal, like a blade stabbing him in the heart. Suddenly, a group of assassins emerged from the shadows, surrounding Mark and the stranger. John burst out, not letting Mark escape. The first assassin threw a straight boxing punch, but John dodged and countered with a flurry of Wing Chun strikes, his fists moving like lightning, each blow landing on his opponent's chest, forcing him back. The second man, holding a knife, lunged with a wushu move, the blade glinting. John spun, using judo to grab his wrist and twist it, then delivered a capoeira heel kick, his leg drawing a perfect arc to strike his chin and knock him flat. John's movements were fluid, like a deadly dance under the dim moonlight of Central Park. He took down 2 more men, combining Krav Maga and Silat, each move precise and efficient. Mark panicked and tried to run. John pursued him, vaulting over a fence and landing in front of him. Mark drew a gun, but John was faster, using Aikido to lock his arm and break the joint, causing the gun to clatter to the ground. He pinned Mark to the grass, his voice cold. "Tell me, why?" "The betrayal," Mark gasped for air. "Victor offered a higher price. He wants to use Pandora's box to control the world." John questioned him further, learning that Victor was in a snow fortress in Siberia, Russia, preparing to activate the device. Mark begged for mercy, but John left him alive, letting Ethan tie him up. "He'll face the CIA later," John said, his eyes devoid of emotion. The team returned to their secret base in Brooklyn. Sarah analyzed the data from Mark's briefcase, discovering Victor's plan to drop satellites on major cities, starting with New York, to blackmail governments. "He has an air defense system in Siberia," Sarah said. "We need to get in there before he activates it." Ethan nodded. "I'll need a high vantage point for sniping." Jason checked the car. "I'll get us across the Russian border." John looked at the team, his voice firm. "This isn't just a mission, this is war." But suspicion still lingered in John's mind. Mark wasn't the only mole. He checked the data Sarah had downloaded and found another communication signal originating from within the team. Someone was feeding information to Victor. John remained silent, not wanting to break the team's unity before the big fight. He ordered them to prepare, and the team boarded a private jet bound for Russia. In the cabin, John checked his armor and his gun, his mind flashing back to his last time in New York, when he faced a street assassin. The man used kickboxing, throwing a high kick, but John countered with Jeet Kune Do, using a short, powerful punch combined with a taekwondo roundhouse kick to take him down in an instant. That memory reminded him that, mole or not, he had to trust his skills and his instincts. The plane shook as it entered Russian airspace. John looked out the window. Knowing Siberia would be the harshest battlefield yet, he gripped his combat knife, preparing for a relentless hunt. Victor wasn't just an enemy, he was the embodiment of corruption and power. John told himself that no matter who he had to face, he wouldn't stop until Pandora's box was destroyed. John Wick clung to a cable, his body swaying in the Siberian blizzard in Russia. Below him, a sheer cliff covered in white ice led down to Viktor Kuznetsov's underground fortress. After leaving New York, John's team had endured a perilous journey to get here, burdened by the suspicion of a mole and the determination to destroy Pandora's box. Sarah Connor checked the hacking device on her back. Her eyes focused. Ethan Hunt carried his sniper rifle, seeking a high position on the cliff face. Jason Bourne stood by a snowmobile, ready for their escape. John gave the signal, and the entire team slid down the mountain, their skis cutting through the snow, creating shimmering trails under the moonlight. They stopped near the fortress entrance, hiding behind a massive block of ice. Sarah hacked the security cameras, and a small screen on her wrist displayed images of the guards. "The air defense system is active," She whispered. "We have 10 minutes before a satellite scans the area." John nodded and led the infiltration. A guard appeared, holding a rifle. John lunged forward, dodging his punch and countering with a series of Krav Maga strikes, hitting his throat, then delivered a low, silent leg sweep that sent him crashing onto the ice. His movements were fluid, like a deadly dance in the middle of the blizzard. Each of John's blows precise, without a single wasted second. The team entered a cold steel corridor, red lights flashing. Sarah hacked the door lock, but an alarm blared. A group of mercenaries rushed out, armed with electric batons. John faced the leader, who used Russian Sambo, trying to wrestle John to the floor. John spun, using Wing Chun to block the attack, and then delivered a sharp elbow strike from Muay Thai to the opponent's chin, knocking him out instantly. Another one attacked with Wushu, swinging his electric baton in an arc. John dodged, used judo to grab the wrist and break the joint, then finished with a heel kick from capoeira, his legs spinning like a blade, sending him flying into the wall. The team coordinated perfectly. Ethan provided covering fire from a distance, taking down 2 men on the stairs. Jason threw a smoke grenade, creating a concealing screen of mist. They entered the control room, where Sarah plugged in a USB drive to download the data. The screen displayed Victor's plan: use the Pandora box to crash a satellite into New York within the next 24 hours, forcing the government to pay a ransom. "He wants to control the world," Sarah said, her voice tense. John checked the fortress map and discovered the vault containing the Pandora box was on the deepest level. But an explosion shook the corridor, and mercenaries swarmed in. John led the counterattack, charging into the group of enemies. One guy used kickboxing, throwing a high kick. John dodged, countering with Jeet Kune Do, a short punch combined with a roundhouse kick from Taekwondo, hitting the opponent's chest and knocking him down. John's movements were as beautiful as a martial arts performance, each strike calculated with precision, leaving the enemies no time to react. Sarah hacked the alarm system off, but a soldier fired a rocket from a distance. John leaped over the railing, landed on the floor below, and dodged the explosion. He faced a tall assassin who used Russian systema with fluid strikes. John countered with mixed martial arts, combining punches from boxing and low kicks from Silat, taking him down in seconds. The team escaped, running through the smoke-filled corridor. Ethan provided sniper fire, clearing a path. Jason readied the snowmobiles, shouting, "Get on now." They burst outside into a blinding snowstorm, but an enemy helicopter appeared, firing a barrage of bullets. John jumped onto an ice wall and slid down, dodging the bullets. He launched himself up, grabbing onto the helicopter's skid, and faced the pilot. The pilot used a knife, attacking swiftly. John dodged, used Aikido to lock his arm and break the joint, then delivered an elbow strike from Muay Thai to his face, causing the pilot to slump over. John parachuted out, landing on Jason's vehicle. The team escaped the pursuit and stopped at a nearby cave. Sarah checked the data and found another communication signal from New York. "The mole isn't just Mark," she said. "Someone else in the CIA is still in contact with Victor." John tightened his grip on his dagger, his eyes cold. He knew the team was being hunted, not just by Victor, but also by a traitor in the shadows. "We're going back to New York," John ordered. "Find the mole, then finish Victor in Russia." Ethan checked his gun. Jason started the vehicle, and Sarah closed her laptop. They boarded the plane, heading for New York, ready for a bigger battle. John looked out the window as the Siberian snowstorm faded. He told himself that no matter who the enemy was, the Pandora box must be destroyed. at all costs. Suspicion gnawed at John Wick's mind as he sat in the cramped airplane cabin, leaving the Siberian snowstorm in Russia behind. After raiding Viktor Kuznetsov's fortress, he and his team had secured crucial data. But the price was shattered. Trust. The fake Pandora box in John's hands was just a decoy. The real one was in New York. And the mole in the CIA was still a ghost. Sarah Connor typed on her laptop. Searching for a signal from Victor, Ethan Hunt checked his weapon. His gaze cold. Jason Bourne held the plane's yoke, remaining silent. But the person who made John most uneasy was Alexei Ivanov, the former Russian agent sitting across from him, his eyes as sharp as a knife. The alliance with Alexei was a double-edged sword, and John knew one mistake could tear the whole team apart. "Do you really want Victor dead? Or are you just playing games?" John asked, his voice low, his hand tightening on the dagger hidden in his jacket. Alexei smirked and replied, "He betrayed me, took everything from me. I have nothing left to lose." Alexei's words were filled with hatred, but John didn't fully trust him. He ordered a landing at a small airfield on the Russian border, where they would switch to another plane to head to New York. But as the plane touched down, a group of mercenaries ambushed them, the light from flashbangs bursting in the night. John burst out of the cabin and faced the first man, he used Filipino eskrima, wielding 2 short sticks. Swinging them as fast as the wind, John dodged, countering with pencak silat, a low punch combined with a roundhouse kick, his leg curving like a scythe, hitting the opponent's stomach and making him double over. The second man attacked with savart, a sharp, straight kick. John spun, using Jeet Kune Do to block the blow with his forearm, then threw a punch from boxing that hit his chin, knocking him backward. John's movements were like an artistic performance, each strike precisely calculated, combining strength and flexibility, leaving the enemies no time to react. Alexei joined the fight, facing a large soldier who used Russian sambo. Trying to wrestle him down, Alexei countered with systema, punching the shoulder joint, then applying a chokehold, taking him down in seconds. John watched, realizing Alexei fought with desperation, like a man with no way out. The team coordinated. Sarah hacked the airfield lights, creating a disorienting haze. Ethan sniped from a distance, taking down 2 men in the watchtower. Jason drove a vehicle through, clearing an escape path, but a helicopter appeared, firing a barrage of bullets. John leaped onto a nearby container, facing the pilot through the cockpit glass. The pilot used a knife. Attacking swiftly, John dodged, used Aikido to lock his arm and break the joint, then delivered a heel kick from capoeira, his legs spinning like a ballet dancer's, hitting the pilot's face and knocking him out. John parachuted out, landing on the team's vehicle. They stopped at an abandoned warehouse near the border. Sarah analyzed the new data, confirming Victor had left Russia and was heading to New York to activate the Pandora box in a building in Manhattan. "He's targeting Wall Street," she said, her voice trembling. John turned to Alexei. "What do you know about this plan?" Alexei revealed. "Victor has an elite team of soldiers in New York, led by an assassin named Natasha. She's more dangerous than Victor himself." John nodded, but his eyes never left Alexei. He could sense truth mixed with lies in his words. The team boarded a new plane, heading for New York. In the cabin, John checked his armor and gun, his mind drifting back to an encounter with an assassin in Russia years ago. The man had used kung fu, throwing a flurry of rapid punches, but John took him down with Brazilian jiu-jitsu, choking him out in an instant. That memory reminded him that even though Alexei might be an ally, he had to be ready for a stab in the back. Sarah detected a new signal from the CIA, indicating a secret meeting in Manhattan. The mole is about to show themselves, she said. John ordered. We're hitting Victor's den directly. Alexei, you're with me. The plane glided through the night sky, the lights of New York appearing in the distance. John tightened his grip on his dagger, knowing the coming battle was not just about the Pandora box, but also about loyalty and survival. The alliance with Alexei could either save or destroy everything. He looked at his team, his voice firm. No one falls back. We end this. The plane descended, preparing for their biggest fight yet. Adrenaline coursed through John Wick's veins as the plane landed at a private airfield on the outskirts of New York. After the battle in Siberia, Russia, his team carried the data on the Pandora box and a fragile alliance with Alexei Ivanov. But the suspicion about the mole still haunted him. Sarah Connor opened her laptop, confirming Viktor Kuznetsov was in Manhattan. Preparing to activate the device in an abandoned building near Wall Street, Ethan Hunt checked the scope on his sniper rifle, his eyes sharp and cold. Jason Bourne started an armored truck, ready for the chase. John ordered. We're hitting the den directly. Alexei, you stay close to me. He didn't fully trust Alexei, but he needed his skills to deal with Victor. The team sped into the streets of New York, neon lights reflecting on the car's windows. Sarah hacked the traffic system, turning the lights green for the team to move quickly. They stopped near the target building, an old structure with shattered windows. John led the way, infiltrating through a fire escape. Inside, the corridor was dark, with a strong smell of machine oil. A group of mercenaries appeared, led by Natasha. The assassin Alexei had mentioned Natasha, with her black hair tied high, charged at John. She used Kali, the Filipino martial art, her two short knives swinging as fast as the wind. John dodged, countering with Penkak Silat, a low punch combined with a roundhouse kick, his leg curving like a scythe, hitting Natasha's shoulder. She stepped back but counterattacked with a kick from Savate, aiming for his chest. John spun, using Jeet Kune Do for a short punch, then locked her in a chokehold with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, tightening it in an instant. Natasha collapsed, but John kept her alive for questioning. Sarah hacked the cameras and found Victor on the top floor, but another team of soldiers swarmed in, armed with automatic weapons. John gave a signal, and the team split up. Ethan climbed onto the adjacent rooftop. Finding a sniper position, Jason drove the vehicle around back. Ready for extraction, John and Alexei faced the group of soldiers. One man used Arnis, swinging a wooden stick in an arc. John countered with Wing Chun, blocking the series of attacks, then delivered an elbow strike from Muay Thai to the chin, knocking him down. Alexei used Systema, punching another man in the shoulder joint, his movements as powerful as a Russian bear. Their movements coordinated perfectly, like a martial arts performance amidst the flickering lights of the corridor. They moved up to a higher floor, but an explosion shook the ground beneath them. Victor had activated a trap, filling the area with thick smoke. John leaped over the railing, landed on the floor below, and faced two soldiers. They used kickboxing, throwing a series of high kicks. John dodged, using mixed martial arts, combining punches from boxing and low kicks from Silat, taking them down one by one. Alexei provided support, taking down another man with a dagger, his movements as fast as lightning. They ran up the stairs, but Natasha, who had escaped, blocked their path. She attacked John with Kali, her knives flashing. John countered with Krav Maga, striking her weak points, then delivered a heel kick from Capoeira, his legs spinning like a ballet dancer's. hitting her in the face. Not a chauffeur. And John tied her up. Sarah contacted him via earpiece. Victor is moving the Pandora box to the docks. He has a boat waiting. John ordered. Jason, get the vehicle ready. Ethan, provide covering fire. The team rushed outside and jumped into the armored truck. The chase began on the streets of New York as Victor's vehicle sped across the Brooklyn Bridge. Jason accelerated, weaving through traffic. John leaped onto Victor's vehicle and faced the driver. The driver used kung fu. Throwing a flurry of rapid punches, John dodged, used a judo chokehold, and threw him from the vehicle. But Victor jumped onto a speedboat at the docks. Taking the Pandora box with him, John gave chase, leaping onto the boat, and faced two soldiers. They used taekwondo, with a series of roundhouse kicks. John countered with Jeet Kune Do, using short punches, then delivered an elbow strike from Muay Thai. Taking them both down, the boat sped across the Hudson River, the waves crashing violently. Victor appeared, holding a gun. John dodged the bullets, charged in, and used Aikido to lock his arm and break the joint. But Victor broke free and activated a decoy device, making the boat shake. John realized the real Pandora box was still in Manhattan. He jumped into the water, swam to shore, and contacted the team. Go back to Wall Street. He tricked us. Sarah confirmed the signal from the abandoned building. John tightened his grip on his dagger, his eyes cold. He knew Victor was playing a game of cat and mouse, and the mole on the team was still hiding. The team regrouped and rushed back to Manhattan, ready for the final battle. John recalled a time in Russia when he took down an assassin with a roundhouse kick from Savate. The movement as beautiful as art. Now, he needed that same focus to finish Victor and destroy the Pandora box. John Wick stood in the shadows of a narrow alley in Manhattan, New York, his heart pounding as he realized Mark Thompson's betrayal. After the failed chase on the Hudson River, his team had returned to the abandoned building near Wall Street, where Viktor Kuznetsov was hiding with the real Pandora box. Sarah Connor hacked into the security system, confirming Victor was on the top floor, preparing to activate the device. Ethan Hunt found a sniper position on the opposite building, his eye glued to the scope. Jason Bourne checked the armored truck, ready for extraction. Alexei Ivanov, with his unreadable expression, stood next to John, but suspicion still clung to him. John knew that to get to Victor, he had to face the entire den of enemies and the ghost of the mole alone. John infiltrated through a fire escape, the dark hallway echoing with the sound of dripping water. Suddenly, a group of mercenaries rushed out, led by an assassin named Dmitri. Victor's right-hand man, Dmitri, tall and imposing, attacked with Savate, throwing a sharp, straight kick. John dodged, countering with Kali, the Filipino martial art, wielding two short knives that swung as fast as the wind, each slice hissing through the air. Dmitri counterattacked with Russian Sambo, trying to wrestle John to the floor. John spun, using Pencak Silat, delivering a low punch to the stomach, then a roundhouse kick, his leg curving like a scythe, hitting Dmitri's throat and bringing him down. John's movements were like a deadly performance, each strike fluid, without a single wasted second. Sarah said through the earpiece, "The cameras show Mark is on the floor above, near Victor." John tightened his grip on his dagger and climbed the stairs, his heart heavy. Mark, once a friend, had sold out the team in exchange for power from Victor. John entered a large room where Mark stood next to three mercenaries. "John, you don't understand. Mark said, his voice trembling. Victor is going to change the world, John replied coldly. You chose the wrong side. The soldiers charged in, one using harness. Swinging a wooden stick in an arc, John countered with Jeet Kunedu, blocking the blow with his forearm, then delivered an elbow strike from Muay Thai to the chin, knocking him down. The second man used Kung Fu, his punches as fast as rain. John dodged, used Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to grapple him, and choked him out in an instant. The last one drew a knife. John used Krav Maga, striking his weak points, then delivered a heel kick from capoeira, his legs spinning like a ballet dancer's. Taking him down, Mark drew a gun, but John was faster, lunging forward and using Aikido to lock his arm and break the joint, making the gun fall. He pinned Mark to the floor and interrogated him. Where's Victor? Mark panted. The rooftop. He has an elite team of soldiers. John teared Mark up, leaving him for Ethan to handle for bloke.com. He contacted the team. Sarah, hack the rooftop door. Ethan, provide cover. Jason, get the vehicle ready. But Alexei interjected, I'm going with you. John looked at him, his gaze cold, but he nodded. The alliance with Alexei was still a double-edged sword, but he had no other choice. They climbed to the rooftop, where the New York wind blew fiercely, and the city lights twinkled in the distance. A team of Victor's soldiers was waiting, armed with automatic weapons. John and Alexei charged in, coordinating like two warriors. One man used kickboxing, throwing a high kick. John dodged, used Wing Chun with a flurry of punches, then delivered a low kick from Silat, sweeping his leg. Alexei faced another man, using Systema to punch his shoulder joint, then put him in a chokehold, taking him down quickly. Their movements were like a violent dance, complementing each other amidst the echoing gunfire. Sarah hacked the main door, opening the way to Victor's control room. But a small explosion shook the rooftop. Victor had activated a trap, filling the area with thick smoke. John leaped over the railing, landed on a scaffold, and faced two soldiers. They used Taekwondo. With a series of roundhouse kicks, John countered with mixed martial arts, combining punches from boxing and low kicks from Silat, taking them down one by one. Alexei provided support, taking down another man with a dagger, his movements as fast as lightning. They entered the room, but Victor had already escaped with the Pandora box, boarding a cargo plane in the New York sky. Sarah yelled through the earpiece. He's targeting Manhattan. The satellite will fall in 12 hours, John ordered. Jason, get a vehicle. We're giving chase. The team rushed outside and jumped into the armored truck. John checked his armor, recalling the confrontation in Russia when he took down an assassin with a roundhouse kick from Savart. A move as beautiful as art. Now, he needed that same focus to face Victor in the air. The vehicle sped towards a private airfield where a small plane was waiting. John gripped his dagger, his gaze determined. He knew the coming battle would decide the fate of New York and the entire world. The cargo plane roared through the New York sky, the city lights twinkling like stars in the night below. John Wick held tight to his safety harness, his eyes fixed on the radar, displaying Viktor Kuznetsov's position. After the fight on the rooftop near Wall Street, Victor had escaped with the real Pandora box, boarding a plane modified into a flying fortress. Sarah Connor sat in the back, typing on her laptop, trying to hack the enemy plane's control system. Ethan Hunt checked his sniper rifle, ready to provide cover from a distance. Jason Bourne gripped the yoke of the team's small plane, weaving through the skyscrapers. Alexei Ivanov, with his unreadable expression, sat next to John, a dagger glinting beneath his jacket. John felt the immense pressure. Only a few hours remained before Victor activated the Pandora box, sending a satellite crashing down on Manhattan. "Sarah, what's the situation?" John asked, his voice low. "I'm trying to block the satellite signal, but Victor's system has high-level encryption," Sarah replied, sweat beading on her forehead. Jason cut in. "We're approaching. Get ready to jump." John checked his parachute, dagger, and pistol. He remembered a time in Russia when he parachuted from a helicopter and took down an assassin with a punch from Pencak Silat. A move as fast as lightning. Now, he needed that focus more than ever. The team's plane closed in on the tail of Victor's aircraft. A small explosion rocked the air as the enemy pilot fired a missile. Jason banked the plane, dodging the missile in an instant. John opened the cabin door, jumped onto Victor's plane, and grabbed onto the wing. The wind whipped fiercely, but he held on, climbing into the cargo bay. A group of mercenaries rushed out, led by an assassin named Sergei, who was tall and heavily muscled. Sergei used savate, throwing a sharp, straight kick. John dodged, countering with Kali, his two short knives swinging rapidly, each slice cutting through the air like a blade of light. Sergei counterattacked with Russian sambo, trying to wrestle John to the floor. John spun, using Jeet Kune Do for a short punch, then delivered a spinning kick from capoeira, his leg arcing like a ballet dancer's, hitting Sergei's chin and knocking him out cold. John's movements were like a mid-air martial arts performance, each strike precise, without a single wasted second. Suddenly, the plane shook violently, and zero gravity kicked in as the enemy pilot tried to roll the aircraft. John floated, facing two soldiers. They used kickboxing, throwing a series of high kicks. John adapted quickly, using mixed martial arts, combining punches from boxing and low kicks from Silat, taking them down one by one. He grabbed onto a steel bar, moving through the cabin. Alexei joined the fight, using Systema to punch another man in the shoulder joint. His movements as powerful as a Russian bear. They advanced to the cockpit, where Victor was setting up the Pandora box. Sarah said through the earpiece, "He's about to activate it. I can only block the signal for 10 minutes. John charged at Victor, but a soldier blocked his path, using harness, swinging a wooden stick in an arc. John countered with Wing Chun, blocking the series of attacks, then delivered an elbow strike from Muay Thai to the chin, knocking him down. Victor drew a gun and fired repeatedly. John dodged, leaped over the control panel, and used Aikido to lock his arm and break the joint, making the gun fall. But Victor activated a secondary device, causing the plane to lose control and plummet. John held onto a seat, facing Victor in zero gravity. Victor used Kung Fu, throwing a flurry of rapid punches. John countered with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, grappling him and choking him out in an instant. He took the Pandora box, but the pilot was accidentally shot in the chaos, and the plane went into a freefall. John commanded over the comms, "Jason, move in Ethan," to provide cover fire. Jason brought the team's plane closer, opening the bay door. Ethan took down the soldiers on the wing, clearing the way. John jumped, carrying the Pandora box, and landed on the team's aircraft. But Alexei suddenly held a knife to John. "Give me the device." "Or you d," John said coldly. "You're the mole." Alexei smirked. Victor's price was higher. John lunged forward, using Krav Maga to strike at pressure points, then unleashed a capoeira heel kick that caught Alexei in the face, knocking him toward the open door. John shoved him out, and Alexei plummeted into the darkness. The team's plane made an emergency landing at a small airfield in New York. Sarah confirmed. The real Pandora box is at the Empire State Building. Victor has his final squad. John checked his gear. His eyes determined, he remembered a time in Mexico, taking down an assassin with a savate roundhouse kick. A move as beautiful as art. Now, he needed that same focus to face Victor in the final battle. The team raced toward Manhattan, ready to end the plot. John tightened his grip on his dagger, knowing everything would be settled on the rooftop of the Empire State Building. The rooftop of the Empire State Building in New York shook in the biting wind, the city lights sparkling like an ocean of stars. John Wick faced Viktor Kuznetsov, the Russian mafia boss who held the Pandora box, a device capable of crashing satellites into Manhattan. After the sky-high battle, John's team had landed, exposed Alexei Ivanov as the mole, and eliminated him. Now, only John, Sarah Connor, Ethan Hunt, and Jason Bourne were left to face Victor and his final elite squad. Sarah hacked the building's systems, sealing every exit. Ethan took a sniper position on the opposite building. Jason waited below with an armored truck. John, with his dagger and pistol, entered the final fight, determined to destroy the Pandora box. Victor, a towering figure, stood in the middle of the rooftop, holding a remote. "You can't stop me, Wick," he roared, activating a timer on a bomb attached to the Pandora box. A small screen flashed 12 seconds. John watched calmly, his eyes locked on Victor. He analyzed every movement, from the grip on the device to the flicker in his eyes. 10 seconds. Victor charged, throwing a heavy MMA-style punch at John's face. John dodged cleanly and countered with a Pencak Silat sequence. A low strike to the stomach, then a roundhouse kick, his leg curving like a sickle. Striking Victor's shoulder, he staggered back, snarling. 8 seconds. Victor countered with Russian Sambo, trying to throw John to the floor. John spun, using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to lock Victor's arm. Tightening the joint, he broke free. But John landed a sharp Muay Thai elbow to his chin, sending him stumbling. 5 seconds. Victor reached for the bomb, but John was quicker, lunging forward with Krav Maga, striking a pressure point, then snatching the device and hurling it off the building. The bomb exploded in mid-air, a blinding but harmless flash. Victor screamed, charging one last time with a kung fu flurry of rain-like punches. John responded with Jeet Kune Do, blocking the combination, then delivered a capoeira heel kick, his legs spinning like a dancer's plop, right into Victor's throat. He fell, unconscious. But the battle was not over. A squad of Victor's mercenaries flooded the rooftop, armed with electric batons and automatic rifles. John plunged in, confronting the first one. The man used harness, swinging a wooden stick in an arc. John dodged, countering with Wing Chun's chain punches, then a low, silent leg sweep that brought him down. A second man attacked with a sharp Savati front kick. John responded with Kali, his twin short knives, a blur, each slash a flash of light, felling his opponent. John's movements were a martial arts showcase, every strike smooth and precise. An artist on a deadly dance floor. Sarah came through the earpiece. "The satellite system has been activated. I need 30 seconds to override it." John held his position, facing the last 3 soldiers. They used kickboxing, unleashing a barrage of high kicks. John countered with mixed martial arts, blending boxing punches with low silat kicks to defeat them one by one. From a distance, Ethan's sniper fire took down a mercenary on the stairs, giving Sarah the opening she needed. She shouted, "Got it, satellite link is severed." John picked up the Pandora box from Victor's grasp and smashed it under his foot. The device's screen went black. Victor's plan was finished. Suddenly, a helicopter appeared, unleashing a hail of bullets. John vaulted over the railing, grabbing onto scaffolding to evade the fire. He climbed up and confronted the pilot. The man lunged with a knife. John dodged, using Aikido to lock his arm and break the joint, followed by a Muay Thai elbow to the face that knocked the pilot unconscious. John bailed out. Landing on Jason's truck below, the team sped away through the streets of New York, leaving the building shrouded in dust. Sarah confirmed, "All signals from the Pandora box are gone. We won." Ethan lowered his rifle, sighing in relief. Jason smirked. That was intense. John sat in the vehicle, inspecting his dagger, his gaze thoughtful. He remembered that time in Mexico, taking down an assassin with a Savate roundhouse kick. A move as beautiful as art. Now, he had dealt with Victor, but the cost was his trust. Broken by the traitors Alexei and Mark, the team pulled into a secure warehouse. John ordered, "Get some rest. We're heading back to Russia to clean up what's left of Victor's network." He stepped out, gazing at the New York skyline, knowing his life in hiding was over. He was the Phantom, and the fight was never finished.